Guess who's mostly not sick anymore?
Who?
It's me.
Oh.
Yep.
Well, that's good. I somehow managed not to get the creeping crud.
I don't know how you didn't, because I was real nasty sick.
Yeah. You were pretty gross, and I was sure that I was going to get it, and somehow I did not.
Well, you were lucky because it didn't feel very good.
No, being sick rarely feels great.
Yeah, it was... I don't know. There's part of me that wonders if it wasn't COVID.
Yeah.
Just because it kind of felt icky, like whenever I've had COVID before.
Yeah.
But our COVID tests were...
expired.
Long expired, like over a year expired, so... And Walgreens charges you $30 to take a COVID test now.
Yeah.
So...
It's not one of those things that people find a priority anymore.
No. And just to be very clear, we always took COVID very seriously here. We were always wearing our masks and doing everything like we were supposed to do. Just sometimes when you're at school these days, it's like catching the cold.
Yep, it just is something that goes around all the time now.
Yep. But I was so out of it, I couldn't even try to write my story last week, let alone have a voice to record it with.
And I was having to stand in for her, so I didn't really have a whole lot of time for myself last week. And plus I've got kittens, and it just didn't work out last week.
Yep, but here we are, and I've got a story for you. And would you first like me to tell you about the heart attack I just tried to give myself?
Why would you try to give yourself a heart attack?
I don't know. I swear the animals are going to give me a heart attack. It's not me, it's the animals. But, okay, so our yard does not have a fence.
No.
So, anytime we let our dogs out, they either have to go out like on like a lead, or they have kennels to go in. And our two dogs that we call our puppies, even though they're 12 years old, they have two separate kennels, and their names are Pig and Butch. Pig is real needy.
Very needy.
And if she's not in the same kennel with Butch, she just cries the entire time she's out there. And so we've been putting them in the same kennel. And I was just getting them out of their kennel to put them to bed. And Butch is always the first one standing there to come out.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just so used to them being in their separate kennels. So I grabbed him and just flung the door wide open.
Good job.
And Pig just runs.
Yeah. And they're fun to catch after they start running.
Luckily, she came to me pretty fast, so it wasn't too bad. But, like, all of those cats were just right there, and, like, she's just running, and I had him, and I was freaking out a little bit. And so I tried to have a heart attack.
Great job.
But I didn't, I don't think.
I think you'd probably notice.
Probably. Alright. Well, you want me to tell you a story?
I guess so. I think that's why we're here, so.
It's probably why everybody else is here, too. Unless they just like listening to us yap.
Or Taco scratch on the door.
Yeah.
Why don't you come lay on the bed?
Come on. Come on. Come on. I'm gonna come lay with the lizard. Come on. And give Nanny a heart attack when she hears that. Come here.
Tiki.
She said no.
Whatever.
Okay, well, setting the scene. It's Thanksgiving Eve, 1971.
Alright.
Okay. A man in a business suit, loafers, sunglasses, a clip-on tie with a faux mother-of-pearl tie pin, carrying an attaché case and a raincoat, walks up to the Northwest Orient Airlines desk in the Portland International Airport and requests a one-way ticket for the $2.50 for the 2:50 p.m. flight to Seattle, which was a 30-minute flight. He slaps a 20 on the desk, fills out a ticket form, and the name he gives is Dan Cooper. No ID or the checking of baggage required because it's 1971.
Because it's the 70s.
Don't have to do that. So Mr. Cooper boards Northwest Orient Airlines Flight 305, which is a Boeing 727 plane. The special thing about this plane is that it had an aft staircase that made it possible to board without the need for like one of those mobile stairs or a jetway. And that's important for later. So Dan gets on this plane and he sits in the last row in seat 18E. And this was a fairly empty flight. There was a total of 36 passengers. I looked it up, but I didn't write it down. I think it could hold like 150 passengers or something. So it's a pretty empty flight. And this is including Dan Cooper. So he had the row of seats to himself. There were also 6 crew members, which consisted of Captain William Scott, First Officer Bill Radizak, Flight Engineer Harold Anderson, and 3 flight attendants, Alice Hancock, Tina Mucklow, and Florence Schaffner.
Okay.
All right, so I have to take you on a quick side quest. So this was a time in history when commercial flights were, like, really taking off. Pun intended. Commercial air travel had been around, apparently, since 1914. Like, planes had been invented, like, 3 days at this point, I guess. But after World War II, it kind of just became a thing.
Right.
And airlines were touting their services, and there are these commercials about, like, how great the food is, and, like, they show, like, them pushing these, like, linen-covered, like, carts down the aisles and slicing off pieces of roast and serving these, like, fancy desserts and all of this stuff. But one of the services that was really selling air travel in the 60s and 70s was flight attendants. And if you were applying to be a flight attendant, or a stewardess, as they were called at the time, there was, like, very strict criteria.
Yeah.
And so you couldn't weigh over 130 pounds. You had to be at least 5'2". You couldn't wear glasses. You had to be between 20 and 27 years old. 32 was, like, mandatory retirement age.
Yeah. They don't want any crusty old stewardesses.
Absolutely not. You couldn't be married or have children. And if you got married, you'd have to resign. They had these academies where they would go to learn how to be flight attendants and apply their makeup and do their hair. And in 1965, an airline called Banff hired the Italian designer Emilio Pucci to design their flight attendants' uniforms. And the campaign was called The Airstrip, because it would allow the flight attendants' uniforms, the flight attendants, to strip off parts of their uniforms during the flight. I know, scandalous. But it was just crazy, because, like, in these commercials, and you see all these flight attendants from, like, different airlines, so their uniforms are different, but, like, some of them are wearing, like, little mod dresses, and some of them have, like, these little short shorts on, and it was just kind of interesting to see. It was, you know...
It was a very different time.
Very different time. Okay, so anyway, going back to our flight, Florence Schaffner, who goes by Flo, began taking the drink orders. And she started at the back of the plane with Dan Cooper, who ordered a bourbon and 7-Up. Now, is that a normal drink?
I don't know what a normal drink is.
That's true. We've never hung out with, like, real grown-ups.
No.
So...
And we've never been, like, drinkers. So.
No. I've never really hung out with anybody who didn't drink cheap beer and Jack Daniels.
Yeah.
So, he reportedly gave her a $20 bill for the $1 drink and said he didn't have anything smaller. So Flo told him, well, I'm going to have to bring you your change after I'm done taking orders, because I also don't have change for this.
Right.
She then goes and after she, I guess, took the drink orders and everything, she goes and sits in the rear of the plane with fellow flight attendant Tina Mucklow as the plane begins its trip down the runway. And she realizes that the man who ordered the bourbon and 7-Up is trying to get her attention, and he hands her a white envelope. Now, because this is the days of the airstrip, she's used to creeps hitting on her.
Right.
So she drops the note into her, like, flight apron thing, and then he's like, no, you really need to read that note.
Yeah.
So she digs it out, and she opens it, and it says, Miss, I have a bomb here, and I would like you to sit by me. No, thank you.
I would like to politely decline.
No, thanks. So she goes and sits by him, and she's like, please tell me you're kidding. And so he opens his attaché case. What is the difference between an attaché case and a briefcase?
I don't know. I don't know if one just sounds more mysterious.
Okay. I couldn't figure out if, like, a briefcase was, like, the hard-sided ones, you know, that have, like, the clips, and an attaché case is, like, more one that, like, opens from the top.
I don't know.
I didn't look it up.
I'm trying, but I can't spell, apparently.
Oh, my gosh. It's, like, attached with an E.
That's not even what I misspelled. I misspelled is.
Great job. Well, I choke on my water. We need some elevator music for these times.
I'm sure we can find some on Pixabay. An attaché case is a specific type of briefcase. The main differences are construction and internal organization. Attaché cases are rigid, box-like, and typically have a single compartment, while briefcases can be soft-sided or hard-sided and feature multiple compartments for better organization of modern tech and personal items.
So I had them kind of backwards.
Yeah.
Okay, got it. All right, so his is one of the hard-sided ones. Got it. Okay. So he opens it up a little bit, and she sees some red sticks attached to a big battery and some wires.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess he told her, like, he had a wire in his hand, and he was like, I just have to, like, attach this wire to this one, and the bomb will go off. And so, as Flo had been changing seats, she had dropped the note. And Tina Mucklow picked it up and read it. And she goes over to the phone in the back of the plane, and she calls the cockpit and tells them, we're being hijacked. He's got a bomb, and this is no joke.
Mm-hmm.
So another wild historical fact is that the 5 years spanning from 1968 to 1972 were known as the golden age of skyjacking.
Okay.
Yeah.
Which is the thing to do.
Yeah, well, in those 5 years, there were over 130 incidents in the U.S. and over 305 in the world.
Okay.
The book, I read a book called Skyjack, The Hunt for D.B. Cooper, and they liken planes at this time to stagecoaches.
Yeah?
Yeah. So...
I feel like a plane is a little harder to
hijack
than a stagecoach because you're in the air.
That's true.
But
also, like, at this time, that's evidenced. It's pretty easy to get on a plane.
Yeah.
Like, there wasn't all of the security checking to see what you had in your attaché case.
But I mean, like, this particular case aside, like, how do you then leave the plane?
Well, let's talk about it.
That's what I'm saying. This particular case aside.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to tell you about the other ones, like, that happen most often. So, most of the skyjackings that occurred, at least in the U.S., were people who were demanding to be taken to Cuba.
Okay.
They were either Cuban nationals wanting to go home or people wanting to seek asylum there.
Mm-hmm.
But it was such a common thing that there was even a plan to build, like, a fake Cuba in, like, Miami.
Mm-hmm.
So that it looked like they were going to Cuba, and the hijackers would think they were going to Cuba, and then when the FBI would be there to arrest them once they stopped. And so it was fully just, fly me to Cuba, let me off the plane.
Yeah.
I don't think that plan to build the fake Cuba ever got off the ground.
I would assume not. I've never heard of fake Cuba.
No. But it sounds like maybe it would have been a good plan.
I guess.
Because it's not like they had GPS where they could see that they actually were not in Cuba.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. So this skyjacking was different, though, because Dan Cooper had some different demands. He slid on his sunglasses,
mm-hmm.
and he asked Flo to take down a note. He wanted $200,000 in negotiable U.S. currency.
Yes.
Negotiable U.S. currency. And everybody was like, that's a weird way to word it. Also, this is about like $1.6 million these days.
Mm-hmm.
He wanted the money to be put into a knapsack. He wanted 2 front parachutes and 2 back parachutes. That was the first time I ever knew that there were different kinds of parachutes.
Yeah, I just thought a parachute with a parachute.
Yeah. Well, I literally have had no desire to ever jump out of a plane in my entire lifetime. So, he wanted a fuel truck ready in Seattle to refuel the plane as soon as they landed. He wanted meals for the flight crew ready. Because, he's the coolest.
Yeah, I mean.
And finally, he told her, no funny stuff or I'll do the job.
Yeah.
So, as cinematically dramatic as that was, it also seems like this was the only time he ever made any direct threat. He also told them that 5 p.m. was the deadline for them to have these things ready for him in Seattle.
Okay.
But remember, this plane was supposed to have taken off at 2:50, and it was a 30-minute flight, so... Okay. So after he makes his demands, Flo tells him that she needs to take the note up to the pilots with his demands. And he's like, but no, you have to sit with me.
Yeah.
And she was like, but I can't do both. And so he finally lets her leave after Tina Mucklow offers to sit with him. Mm-hmm. And little Tina Mucklow was all of 22 years old. And 5'2". She barely made the cutoff.
Yeah.
At the time of the skyjacking. It's just something to keep in mind moving forward. So she sits with him, chats with him, lights his cigarettes. The internet says he chain smoked, but he only smoked like 8 cigarettes in like 2 hours. That doesn't sound like chain smoking. Are you okay?
I have jalapenos on my fingers and my eyes itch, so I'm sure you can put 2 and 2 together.
Cool.
I'm now dying.
Yeah? Oh, this isn't mine.
No.
I was gonna say there's wet ones right there, but you probably don't want to put those in your eyes either. You need to go get a cold washcloth.
We don't even own washcloths.
You need to go get a cold corner of a towel.
Mm-mm. I've washed my hands multiple times, and it has yet to dilute the jalapeno. And you would think it would also help with the itching of the eyes, that my eyes would stop itching because I keep putting jalapeno in my eye, but
it does not.
It has not helped.
Well, you let me know when you're ready.
Okay, give me just a second. Because while I'm dying of jalapeno eye, my eyes are still itching, so I'm trying to scratch my eyes with my wrists. I think I'm gonna live.
Okay, so she's lighting his cigarettes. And I think I already said this. The internet says that he chain smoked.
Yes.
But he only smoked 8 cigarettes in 2 hours. And coming from a family of smokers, that just doesn't seem like chain smoking.
I mean, it's still a fair few cigarettes,
I guess. Let's see. He, I guess, spilled part of his bourbon and 7-Up. Also, I don't know why that matters, but I guess he did. He looked out the window at one point and commented that they were over Tacoma. He asked her where she was from. She asked him if he had a grudge against the airline, and he told her, I don't have a grudge against your airline. I just have a grudge.
Just have a grudge to itch, and I guess I'm gonna scratch it with you guys.
I know, and I just keep, picturing him talking in, Clint Eastwood's voice. I mean, he's saying all of these, very dramatic things.
Yes.
So he also remembered that Flo still had his original note that he gave her with the message about the bomb. And he tells Tina to call the pilots and get it back. Because, then he, his handwriting would have been left behind.
Right.
But also, Flo had not returned from the cockpit. She was like, bye-bye, guys.
Peace out.
Yeah. The pilots radioed ahead to Seattle and let them know that they were being hijacked and what the demands were. Seattle First National Bank had this ingenious plan prior to even the skyjacking occurring, just in case of a bank robbery or a hijacking situation or whatever. So they had a certain amount of money put aside in the vault that was packaged in a way that it looked like it had been hastily put together by a frantic bank worker or whatever. And so I guess a normal stack of $20 bills is 25 bills or $500. And so these stacks weren't all exactly 25 bills, and it just kind of looked like a mess. But the serial numbers had all been photographed. The FBI was also contacting a local skydiving school to get the parachutes, but, like, this is all taking longer than the 30-minute flight.
Right.
So in the meantime, all while this is happening, an ugly storm has hit. And so they're flying around in this thunderstorm, and the pilots call over the intercom into the cabin, and they tell the passengers that they've had a mechanical problem and have been advised that they need to burn off some fuel, so they need to circle the airport for a bit. And they haven't told any of the passengers that they've been hijacked.
Okay.
Like, they don't even know this is happening. And as far as I could tell from witness statements, nobody was even suspicious of this. Like, some of them were getting a little nervous that they were having mechanical problems while they were in the air, and also flying around in the middle of this thunderstorm.
Because no one really wants to hear that or do that.
Yeah. But as far as hijacking goes, they had no idea. There was a college sophomore who sat in row 18, but on the other side of the aisle from Cooper. But I think he was just frustrated because he wanted to hit on Tina, and he couldn't figure out why she was sitting with this middle-aged man and giving him all of her attention. And because he was, like, sitting there, like, you know, trying to come up with, like, what he was going to say to her and stuff, and she obviously couldn't give him any attention. So Cooper then gives Tina the instructions again, but in more detail this time. So the first thing that he wants is the fuel truck to be there ready to refuel the plane as soon as they land. He wants to see the car with the ransom through the window at all times. So I listened to the 3-part series that Astonishing Legends did over D.B. Cooper, and they had said that he had asked them to close all of the windows so that snipers couldn't see him. So I don't know how he did both. Like, saw the car at all times, but also had the windows closed. Because he also stayed at the back of the plane the entire time. So I don't know. Let's see. He then wanted Tina to get off the plane and get the money. She was a little hesitant about this because she was afraid that it would be too much for her to carry. And she was onto something because the money itself was at least 20 pounds. It could have been closer to 5 pounds if they had given him hundreds instead of 20s, but I think he had... I didn't see it whenever I was reading the book, but I think he had specifically asked for 20s.
Well, he asked for negotiable U.S. currency.
Yeah. Maybe that's what that means. I don't know. But he told her, "You'll manage.
You'll figure it out."
After she brought him the money, then the passengers would be released, and they could get the parachutes and the meals for the flight crew, which Tina also had to go get. And he was also going to supply the flight crew with bennies if they needed them, if they were getting sleepy. And I always think it's funny because I know that bennies was the name for, like, what is it, Benzedrine? And which was an upper, and we call Benadryl bennies, which makes me very sleepy.
Yes.
So, you know, I never really thought about it before, like, very much before, because it's just what we've always called them. But I wonder if anybody else hears us talking about bennies and they think that's what we're talking about. Okay, so he checks the time, and it's a little after 5, and he starts to get antsy because he told them the 5 was his deadline.
Yeah.
And he tells Tina, "They'll never take me alive." Because, again, he's very dramatic.
Yes.
And so she calls to the pilots, and they say that the holdup is trying to find front parachutes, but wants to know if Cooper wants them to start landing anyway. And he says yes. And, like, right after that, they call again and say, okay, the parachutes are down. So Seattle-Tacoma International Airport closed down because they knew that this plane had been hijacked and had diverted all of the flights. So the Northwest Orient Airlines Flight 305 was the only plane landing. What was kind of funny, though, was I guess there was a grounded plane that was supposed to, like, go to Denver. And the pilots on that plane tuned into the frequency of the Northwest Orient flight and put it over the intercom so that all of the passengers on that plane could, like, listen to the hijacking.
Yeah.
While they were waiting.
For in-flight entertainment.
Yeah.
Listen to this plane get hijacked.
Yeah. I'd be like, I'm just going to get off this plane. Thank you.
I'd like to go home now.
So the plane finally lands. The fuel truck comes up to start refueling the plane. Tina gets off the plane to get the money bag. And now, I don't know if you remember, but Cooper had requested a knapsack, like, aka a backpack.
Yeah.
The FBI did not provide him with a knapsack. They piled all of the money into a canvas bag. I was picturing, like, with a $sign on the side.
Yes.
Yeah. It didn't have a drawstring or a handle or straps of any kind. The top was just, like, wide open. And while I'm sure this was to be inconvenient for this hijacker, it probably didn't make it any easier for little Tina to lug it back onto the plane. Cooper even offered Tina some of the cash in the bag. Mm-hmm. Her response, "Sorry, sir, no tips. Northwest Orient policy."
Yeah.
I'm not even ashamed to admit that I would have just taken the money.
Okay.
Thank you.
I earned this.
Yeah. I mean, it would have been the least that this man could have done after he threatened them with a bomb.
Yes.
And if the airline got upset about it, bummer. Like, I was just on a hijacked plane with a man who said he had a bomb. So, I'm not sorry. Now that he has the money, he allows the passengers to leave the plane. Mm-hmm. They still don't know they're being hijacked, and they are thoroughly irritated that their 30-minute flight lasted like 2 hours. Mm-hmm. So now he makes Tina get back off of the plane to go get the parachutes. And then Alice and Flo join Cooper and Tina in the back of the plane. And at this point, Cooper seems to be in a fantastic mood. Yeah. He's joking around. He has Flo pick up the money bag to see how heavy it is. He's just having a great time. He even tries to offer Flo and Alice the $19 and change that he got for his $1 bourbon and 7-Up. Mm-hmm. And they give him the same answer that Tina did. No tips allowed. They're so silly.
Silly gals.
They're better people than I am.
Right.
So then Flo and Alice leave the plane. And leave Tina there. Yes. I think he made her stay. I mean, it never, like, explicitly says that, but I think he wanted her to stay because, like, she's, like, running the errands for him. But now he's starting to get cranky because it's taking longer than he thinks that it should to fuel the plane. And they did say that there was a problem fueling the plane, and so they were having to call in backup fuel trucks to help them get the plane refueled for him. Plus, he doesn't have his knapsack for the money, and since he asked for parachutes, it's a safe bet that he's planning on jumping out of the airplane with the money.
Well, right.
The 4 parachutes that were provided to him are 2 regular, like, sports parachutes, 1 front and 1 back, 1 military parachute, and 1 dummy chute that was sewn shut. That, I guess, when the FBI was, like, hurrying to obtain these parachutes, they grabbed the dummy chute by mistake, which seems crazy because everything said that a dummy chute has a big X on it.
Right. So
that you know that it's a dummy chute. And I have to say, after I listened to all of the things that I listened to about this case, I still don't really understand the purpose of the dummy chute. Like, I know it's for training. Mm-hmm. But it was saying something like so that you could open the pilot chute without opening the full parachute. Mm-hmm. But I don't know what a pilot chute is. I don't know. Mm-hmm. So I don't understand it. So anyway, either way, it was sewn shut. And nobody thinks that they brought that to him on purpose because they're currently operating under the assumption that since he asked for 2 front and 2 back chutes, that he's planning on taking Tina as a hostage.
And that doesn't seem...
that they wouldn't, like, knowingly give her a dangerous parachute.
A parachute that doesn't work.
Right. Then the FAA's chief psychiatrist calls and says that he believes that after he and Tina jump out of the plane, that Cooper plans to blow up the plane. So, good news for the pilots.
Yes.
And again, Cooper's trying to figure out what to do with the sack of money that's going to be impossible to skydive with. Mm-hmm. So he grabs the front sports chute, pulls the ripcord to open it up, gets his pocket knife, and starts, like, cutting it up to make a holder for the money that he then uses the cords from the parachute to, like, tie to himself.
Yeah.
And according to sources, this was the best parachute of the bunch. It could be steered, like, it had little things to, like, be able to steer it. And so some people believe that Cooper might have been familiar with parachuting, but not an expert, that he chose the best parachute of the bunch to chop up. So he then relays his next set of instructions to the pilots through Tina. He wants them to fly to Mexico City with the cabin lights out and no one except Tina behind the first class curtain. He wants the landing gear down. He wants the flaps set to 15 degrees and to fly at 10,000 feet, no higher. He wants the aft door open and the stairs down. And so they call Boeing to find out if they can even fly like that. And so Boeing tells them, well, you can't take off with the aft stairs down, but the plane can fly with them down after takeoff, because the same plane had been used in Vietnam to drop, like, large boxes out of the plane, and so they would have to drop the stairs down and then slide the boxes down that way, and so that it could fly like that.
Yeah.
The other problem was that because the plane is going to be flying so low and slow, it's going to use a lot of fuel. So they can't make it all the way to Mexico City, and they figure the farthest that they can fly without refueling is Reno, Nevada. To which Cooper replies, like, whatever, I don't even care. I'm going to jump out of the plane. I don't care where you go. So, meanwhile, Tina is trying to reason with Cooper to try to let her go up to the cockpit. And he tells her that she can't because he doesn't know how to lower the stairs. And that she's going to have to help him. And she's freaking out because she's like, as soon as you open the door, I'm going to get sucked out of the airplane. And so she's like, can I use some of this parachute cord that you chopped up to, like, tie myself to something, because she's afraid she's going to suck it out of the plane. And he literally just tells her, never mind. And he tells her that he'll just do it himself after she shows him how to open the door, and then sends her to the cockpit. But before she leaves, she asks him what he's going to do with the bomb. And he tells her that he's either going to take it with him or disarm it. And then she went to the cockpit. The FBI had a couple of fighter jets dispatched to tail the plane, but it was traveling so slow that the jets just whooshed past them. They also had a helicopter following, but it was too slow to catch up to the plane. And all of these different jets and helicopters and stuff ran on different frequencies, so they couldn't even contact the pilots of the plane. And so they were just basically up there by themselves. The plane had departed SeaTac at 7:40 p.m. A short time after they were in the air, Cooper called up to the pilots because he was having trouble with the stairs. And I guess they were kind of like, they needed gravity to really work. Like, you had, like, something needed to be pushing down on them to make them come down. And I know that they made some kind of adjustment in the flying or something where he was able to get them down enough, because at 8 o'clock they noticed that a light on their instrument panel lit up that indicated that the door to the aft stairs had been opened. The pilots called back on the intercom and said they figured it was probably really loud back there now that the door was open. And they said, can you hear me? Is there anything we can do for you? And Cooper picked up the phone and just replied with, no. And that was the last they heard from him. At 8:13, they felt a bump in the plane, like the tail had kind of pitched a little bit. And this is presumably the moment when he jumped from the plane. However, without going back there, they couldn't be sure, and they didn't want to just go back there because the door's wide open. And so they did try to call him on the intercom several more times and never got an answer. At 11:02 p.m., they landed in Reno with the aft stairs still deployed. Cooper was gone, and a bomb squad boarded to check for the bomb, and they didn't find it. And that was it. He was gone. No one knew his real identity, and after an extensive search in the area they estimated he jumped, no trace of him was found. That is until 1980. In 1980, the Ingram family was enjoying an outing on the Tina Bar on the Columbia River in Vancouver, Washington. Their 8-year-old son, Robert, was Not Robert, Brian. I don't know why I wrote Robert. His name is Brian. Who's Robert?
Those are two different names.
I don't even know who Robert is. Brian was smoothing out some sand for his father to build a campfire on. Mm-hmm. And he felt something under the sand, so he started digging, and he found 3 stacks of money that was still bound together, and it was in, like, pretty rough condition.
Yeah.
And he gave it to his parents, who eventually turned it over to the FBI, and it turned out to be $5,800, and the serial numbers matched the ransom numbers given to Cooper. Mm-hmm. The money was, like I said, badly deteriorated. The corners were rounded, like they had been in moving water for a long time.
Yeah.
The FBI sent people out to search for more money, but nothing was ever found. And they eventually kept a few bills for evidence and then split the remaining money between Brian and Northwest Airlines Insurance Company. Brian received $2,760, which I was like, good on them to give it to the kid.
Right.
Since he's the one who found
about
it. In 2008, he sold 15 of his bills at auction for $37,000. So it was a great investment.
Yeah. Most people would have just spent it.
Yeah, well, I don't think he could have spent it because, like, it was real bad. Mm-hmm. Let me see. I'll show you a picture. Let's see. D.B. Cooper found money, maybe. Let's see.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And, like, it wasn't in a bag or anything, and so some people wonder, like, did it fall out when, like, he was parachuting, or, you know, did he, like, try to hide some, or, you know, something, but, no other bills, like, I don't know if I said this already, have ever been recovered that match the serial numbers.
Yeah.
But you know what I kept wondering while I was reading all of this and listening to the podcast and stuff was, I mean, I don't even know how they would do it now, but they took pictures of, like, all of these, like, hundreds of $20 bills for the serial numbers. Who's sitting around checking the serial numbers of every $20 bill that gets spent there? Mm-hmm. You know, because they gave the picture or the list of serial numbers to, like, casinos and places where they thought that he might spend the money. Uh-huh. But even still, like, who's going through and looking at every serial number of every $20 bill? That seems insane. And even now, I mean, I guess they could scan them, but I still don't know that that's a thing. I mean, usually they put them in, like, the money counters and go about their business. So, I don't know. That just seems like a lot of work. So, before we talk about the suspects, you might be wondering how we ended up with the name D.B. Cooper, when he literally identified himself as Dan Cooper at the airport and never identified himself as anything else during the flight, and no one actually knew his real identity. So I'll tell you.
Okay.
Apparently, it was a mistake by a reporter. So when word started getting out that the plane was hijacked, a reporter named James Long from the Oregon Journal misheard the name over the wire, like it was garbled, and reported him as D.B. Cooper. And then other stories spawned from his story, and that name just spread. And the FBI actually didn't correct any of them because they thought it might help narrow in on credible sources if the name came in as Dan Cooper instead of D.B. Cooper, since that wasn't even a real thing.
Yeah.
But from then on, for the rest of time, it's always been known as the D.B. Cooper story.
That's what it's famously known as.
Yep. So, more than 1,000 suspects were considered by the FBI over the years, but there were only a handful that seemed viable. Also, there were many suspects considered and many tips called in. And Flo and Tina had sat with a sketch artist to create a picture of the man that they had spent all of these hours with.
Right.
And so they have a picture both with and without sunglasses. And there were some suspects that seemed to fit everything but didn't even remotely match the descriptions. So, you know, but also eyewitness memory is also really faulty. So, so we'll talk about a couple of the suspects that have gained notoriety. So probably the main suspect that the FBI had was a man named Richard McCoy. Richard actually looks pretty close to the picture. Mm-hmm. And 4 months after Cooper jumped from the plane, Richard McCoy hijacked a plane. Okay. I think it was out of Denver. It was the exact same kind of plane. He asked for $500,000 in cash, and he parachuted out of the plane while it was over Utah. The difference is that McCoy was caught. He was sent to prison and then escaped by making a fake gun out of dental plaster, and then hijacked a truck to, like, leave the prison yard and, like, escape.
Okay.
When the police found him, he decided to go out in a blaze of glory, and he had a shootout with the police where he was killed. His family did give him an alibi for the Cooper hijacking, saying that he had been at home in Utah. So, who knows? Families are known to lie for their loved ones, right, too, so who knows? Another suspect is a man named L.D. Cooper. So, I don't know if he would have used his real name, but maybe. He lived in the Pacific Northwest, and Thanksgiving 1971, his family was together for the holiday at his mother's house in Sisters, Oregon. A woman named Marla Cooper, who was LD's niece, is the person who actually brought him up as a suspect in 2011. She remembers being at her grandmother's house, and that LD was, like, her favorite uncle, and she was 8 at the time, and so she would just follow him around. And that he and another uncle, she, like, kept overhearing them planning something. And she asked them what they were planning, and they said they were going hunting. And she was like, oh, cool, are you going to go hunt a turkey? Because it's Thanksgiving.
Right.
And they kind of laughed and agreed. And the next she remembers seeing her uncles, LD is coming into the house in a bloody shirt, and he seems kind of banged up. And she overhears him say something like, we did it, we hijacked the plane, now our money troubles are over. And her father realized she heard and swore her to secrecy, and then the uncle went into hiding, and she never saw him again.
Yeah. Wow.
Yep. And then to further tie him to this, one of his brothers was an engineer at Boeing, but he also didn't have any skydiving experience that anyone knew of. One other thing that I didn't mention earlier was that there was this very niche Belgian comic book series that was about a pilot for the Royal Canadian Air Force, and the series was called The Adventures of Dan Cooper.
Yeah.
And some of the storylines kind of match up with the Cooper hijacking, like parachuting out of a plane, which, I mean, maybe a stretch because it was about a pilot, but also having ransom delivered in a knapsack. And L.D. Cooper was a fan of this comic that, as far as I could find on the internet, was never even printed in English.
Yeah.
And so that was kind of weird, like a weird kind of tie-in there. Another suspect was a woman named Barbara Dayton. She was a pilot who had been born Robert Dayton, and she had been the first woman in Washington to undergo gender reassignment surgery.
Okay.
She claimed that she had dressed as a man and pulled off the hijacking to get back at the FFA. those future farmers. To get back at the FAA for making it nearly impossible for a woman to become a commercial pilot. She later recanted her story after she found out that she could still be charged with a crime.
So never mind.
Wasn't me. I'm a lady.
I am clearly a lady.
The fourth main suspect is a man named Kenny Christensen. And Kenny actually worked for Northwest Airlines and did parachute jumps in World War II. So on his deathbed, he calls his brother Lyle over and he says, there's something you should know, but I can't tell you.
All right.
And Lyle told him, I don't care what it is. You don't have to tell me about it. No? Spill the tea.
Right.
So later, I guess, Lyle sees an episode of Unsolved Mysteries featuring D.B. Cooper. And he sees the sketch and thinks that it looks like his brother. And then he's like, maybe that's what he was going to tell me.
Right.
And then he hires a private investigator to locate the filmmaker Nora Ephron to ask her to make a movie about his brother being D.B. Cooper.
That's a lot.
It's a lot. The last suspect that we're going to discuss is an insurance salesman named Dwayne Weber. It's W-E-B-E-R. Anyway, so when he was dying in 1995, he told his wife, Jo, I am Dan Cooper. Which I was like, well, he said Dan.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm Dan Cooper. And she was just like, who's Dan Cooper?
Who's that?
And apparently he got really upset that she didn't know who Dan Cooper was and was just like, never mind, just let it die with me. And then he died 3 days later. After he died, she started finding weird things like IDs in his car belonging to John C. Collins, but had her husband's picture on them. And she found out that he had actually been to prison under both his real name and his alias. And after a friend explained to her about the Cooper hijacking, she went to the library to learn more and allegedly found his handwriting in the margins of a book about D.B. Cooper.
Okay.
She also started remembering things that she had no reason to connect to the hijacking before. Dwayne had told her that he had a bad knee injury from jumping out of a plane. They had gone on a trip to Washington together at one point, and he had stopped the car one time and told her that spot is where D.B. Cooper came out of the woods. And I guess she, didn't think, remember that, because she didn't know what he was talking about.
Yeah.
She also said that while they were on the trip, he came inside, and she could tell that he had been digging because his hands and his pants were dirty. But, I guess he never... I don't know if she asked him about it or she just decided not to ask him about it. And later they were driving and he had a paper bag and she asked him about it and he said it was just trash he was going to throw out, which he apparently threw out into the water. And she gets real upset and she's like, how dare you litter in the waterways?
Right.
She has this young dude friend who, tries to help her piece together her memories to kind of fit in with this D.B. Cooper story. And he mapped out the waterways. And so, if her memory was correct about where he threw the bag into the water, it would have ended up in the Tina Bar area.
Yeah.
But I don't know why he would have thrown the money into the water in a paper bag. This was all in a documentary that I watched, and I was, thinking about it earlier, and I was like, did they explain why he would have done that? But I don't remember.
Yeah. That seems like a lot of trouble to go through to get the money to then throw it out the window in a paper bag.
Was he planning on going back to get it? Thinking, it's going to go downstream? I don't know. Because the FBI was curious about where it was because it was upstream from where they thought Cooper would have landed. And so they were like, how would it have got upstream? That doesn't make any sense. So if this story is true, then that would give a reason why it ended up in the place where it was. But anyway, he was eventually ruled out by DNA found on the cigarettes and the necktie that was left behind on the plane. Most of the information about the suspects, like I said, I got from a documentary called The Mystery of D.B. Cooper on HBO. And it was so funny while I was watching it because I'd be like, that guy definitely did it. And then they'd move on to another guy and I'd be like, no, that guy definitely did it.
This guy did it.
And then they'd go back and talk about one of the other guys and I was like, no, that guy definitely did it.
Yeah, that's the one.
It's just crazy because they all kind of fit in these weird ways. But I don't know. The last theory, I think, is the one that's most widely accepted in law enforcement, and it's that Dan Cooper died during the jump. And so, if we recall from the top of the episode, Cooper was wearing a business suit, loafers, and a raincoat. Now, while he did take off his clip-on tie that he left on the plane, and I guess it was from JCPenney. They discovered that. I don't know.
That's very important.
It was important information. Also, that pretty nasty storm had moved in during the commission of this heist. And it's estimated that at 10,000 feet, the temperature was probably in the negatives. There were high winds and heavy rain. The cloud cover made it impossible to see. And it was after dark. So he might have guessed where he was jumping, but it would have been impossible for him to know exactly where he was jumping. And he also jumped over a forest. The military chute that he chose didn't have the ability to be steered. And so, I mean, you just kind of went where it took you. And the backup chute was the dummy chute that didn't open. He left the other good back chute on the plane.
Yeah.
And so, if his first chute had failed, he didn't have a backup. And so, where am I at? And his parachute hasn't ever been found. There was a parachute strap that was found by a hunter at some point, but there's no way to know if that actually belongs to D.B. Cooper or not. So even if he did somehow make it to the ground safely, he was wearing a business suit and loafers.
Yeah. Which
was not made for cold, rainy forests.
No, it's not quite.
And hiking out of cold, rainy forests.
Not quite survival gear.
So to this day, the Cooper hijacking, also known as Norjack, remains the only unsolved case of air piracy in the history of commercial aviation in the United States.
All right.
And God, there's so much information about this case out there, and I just kind of scratched the surface here. Like I said, I listened to a 3-part episode on Astonishing Legends. There's also entire podcasts that are just dedicated, like with multiple episodes. I didn't listen to those because I just didn't have the time, but if you want more details of this case, they are out there and easy to find. I also listened to a podcast I'd never heard before called Stuff You Should Know. Mm-hmm. Have you ever listened to them?
I don't think so.
I love them. I'm going to start listening to them because they're really funny. Let's see. I watched the HBO documentary. I found the original Unsolved Mysteries episode on YouTube, and I watched that. Flo is on that one. She is interviewed for that one. I watched BuzzFeed Unsolved, and I read a book. Oh, I think I already mentioned the book, Skyjack, The Hunt for D.B. Cooper by Jeffrey Gray. And that's where I got most of the information about what took place on the plane. And the HBO documentary was kind of cool because there were interviews with the pilots, and Tina Mucklow was on that one, telling about what it was like to be on the plane and the original FBI agents. So those are all good. There's a bunch of other documentaries. I just didn't have the streaming services to watch all of them. So anyway, there's D.B. Cooper, or Dan Cooper, whatever his real name is.
Or someone whose last name is not Cooper.
Yeah. Now I'm very sleepy.
I'm also very sleepy. I was ready for bed at like 8 o'clock.
Mm-hmm. And this week's going to be all long days. So I've got night school. Well, I had night school today. I had night school tomorrow. I had night school on Thursday.
Why do you have night school tomorrow?
Because I had to trade for when I was sick last week.
Oh.
And then I've got football.
Yeah. It's a busy life.
It's a very busy life. And I'm sure that you're very excited to learn that Taylor Swift is getting married.
So I've somehow unfortunately heard a dozen times today.
It was funny because Kayla came running into my classroom and she was like, guess who's getting married? And I was like, you?
It's so sudden.
And she, no, Taylor Swift. And I was like, oh, I should have guessed that, but I did not. And then we were laughing because like it had been posted 5 hours before that. And I said, this is what happens when they take away our cell phones at school.
Yes.
We don't get informed of the important information that's going on in the world.
According to the guy on the radio that I heard it from for the multipleth time today, today was also the day that the pumpkin spice lattes came back out.
Oh, so it's a magical day all around.
Apparently.
I got a notification this evening from Little Caesars.
They've got some pumpkin spice pizza?
No. The title of it is A Pizza Love Story. And it says, 2 to 1 topping pizzas for just $4.99 each. Baby, just say yes.
I guess run with it if you can.
I mean, why not? She's given lots of things to run with. She announced her new album the other day.
Yeah.
And then all of the companies went crazy about that. And now this. So.
Yeah.
I guess it affects my life in no way.
No.
Other than Travis Kelce doesn't seem to inspire her to write the best songs. The ones that she wrote about him are like,
Yeah.
they're okay. I mean, I'm glad she likes him and everything, but he's no muse.
I can't imagine.
So anyway, you got anything else?
No, I have a backache. That's about it.
It was funny earlier. I got up and I was like, I feel like I've been moving.
Yeah.
Like I was like sore all over. My shoulders were sore. My back was sore. My legs were sore.
It's like my left shoulder blade. It just hurts.
Kayla said it's probably just because I'm not used to standing up and sitting down.
Yeah.
Doing too much up and down right now. All right. Well, remember that you can find us on things at
Social
Twisted
media
and Mysterious.
and stuff.
It's been too long since we've done this.
Yeah, it took a whole week.
God. Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess it's been 2 weeks since we recorded last. So that's plenty of time for my ADHD brain to forget things. So, social media at Twisted Mysterious. You can email us at twistedandmysteriousPodcast@gmail.com.
Our mother would really like to hear from you.
Oh, would she?
Yeah, she was like, you guys should interview some people who have, like first-hand experience with, like, ghosts and stuff, you know? And I was just like, every week, we put out a thing that says, hey, if you have a story, tell us your story.
Yeah. So, okay, well, you can write to Carla at twistedmysteriousPodcast@gmail.com.
She really wants to hear your ghost stories. She's trying to get creeped out, and she has a hard time getting creeped out.
Yeah,
so.
She doesn't scare easily unless you walk up behind her and she can't hear.
She's really upset that Zach Bagans isn't creeping her out enough.
Well, he creeps me out plenty.
He personally, but his ghosts aren't doing it for her.
No, I mean, this woman, just to give you a quick little tangent, she will get on the roller coaster that goes straight down and has nothing to hold on to and puts her hands up in the air and then gets off of said roller coaster and goes, that was it. So
she's looking to be scared.
if you could scare her, that'd be great. I mean, it's not that easy to do. So maybe we should make her watch that one Blair Witch Project we went and saw that one time.
She would say it's dumb.
Ugh. Creeps me out just thinking about it. And I also don't scare easily.
Yeah. It was uncomfortable.
It was so uncomfortable. That... I don't know. We're just going to go on all the tangents after the episode today, I guess. I don't like time loss.
Mm-hmm.
It makes me want to peel my skin off.
Yeah.
And there's so much, like, time jumps and time loss in that movie. Not the original Blair Witch. Like, I don't want to say new one, because it's not new.
No.
But, like, the most recent one, I guess, it's, like, over a decade old, I would imagine at this point. But it's just very, very uncomfortable. And it was cold in the theater.
It was really cold in the theater. So on top of the movie making us uncomfortable, we were physically uncomfortable, and we almost left.
Yeah. But I think that's probably one of the only movies that's, like, just truly scared me.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. Maybe I should watch it again sometime.
Maybe.
I like to get scared every once in a while. And it's funny because I'll seek out, especially, like, it's getting to be spooky season. And so I'll, like, try to find books that will scare me. And I'll, like, search these lists that are, like, books that will scare me or scary books or whatever. And it'll be like, this is the scariest book of all time. And then I read it and it's so stupid and boring.
Mm-hmm.
And so I end up just reading The Shining over and over because even though I know what's going to happen, I still get a little spooked by it.
Yeah. So please scare our mom.
Please scare our mom.
And send us any stories that you have or any story ideas that you have for us to cover.
And maybe we'll be back next week.
Hopefully. Hopefully nobody will be ill next week.
Hopefully.
And we'll be back with another story and some boring banter.
Yeah. Because everybody likes to hear us yap.
Yes. Anyway, so I think that's all that we've got for you. So, as always, remember that people are gross and don't get murdered.
And if you're going to jump out of an airplane, know what you're doing. Goodbye.